Grateful to be here this morning with you, just to walk through God's Word. My name's Stacey Croft. I'm one of the pastors here, and welcome if you're new or if you're visiting this summer. I just met somebody in the back who was visiting just today, just traveling through. And so if you're traveling through, welcome. I hope and pray this morning is an encouragement of God's Word to you. We believe in His Word and what it speaks to us about who He is, His redemption, His saving us, and then how we live in Him. This summer, I don't know if you are, I was talking to somebody just yesterday about this, summer jobs. Don't know if you are doing a summer job, especially if you're somebody younger here or you're just working throughout the summer, as many of us do. But I remember one of my first summer jobs that was pretty intense. I was 12 years old, handing out flyers for this place called Halleck's Chicken in Dallas, Texas. And I remember I was just turning 13, and I went in to talk to them, and they said I was with my mom, and they said, "Hey, our cook has quit. Do you think you could help us cook?" And my mom was like, "Dude, he's 13. I go, "Hey, I do things in the microwave." And they were like, "You're hired." So they put me in the back. And it's not a joke. This is not like a yes chef situation. This is like a, fry cook kind of thing. So like they put me in the back, and I was actually working on one of those industrial fryers, like doing the chicken, frying it. They put me on a slicer, like you see at the deli. Like at 13, they're like, "Let me show you how to do it. You got this." It's like, it's like my fingers, Every time I see those, I'm like, I made the best coleslaw ever, And it's no longer in business. But what was interesting is I thought about that job and I think about the work. The thing I remember most was at the end of the day. And it was usually kind of like just things where the fryers were shutting down. You let the oil cool, and then I had to drain all the fryers. And it was just nasty because, the oil is just black. It's had all this stuff frying in it for, all day. And you have to get your fingers in there and push out these rotted fried fries that just are in the plugs and fill up the buckets and carry them to the back. And I don't even remember if I dumped them in the street or put them somewhere. I don't know what you're supposed to, 13-year-old guy, okay. But sanitary. No wonder they're not in business. But I think about that and I think, gosh, those were some memories of I don't remember if I thought I'm doing this, I'm working well. I do remember I'm going to make the best fried chicken. I remember that as a 13-year-old. And it's just going to be so crispy. How do I want fried chicken to taste, But then I remember things like that, the fryers, and I think, gosh, does this really work? Am I doing this? And that is work. All of us are in a job or going to have a job or have done some sort of jobs at home or in an office, a cubicle. But the Bible is unique when it talks about work. And specifically Proverbs, as we've been looking at Proverbs throughout the summer, and we've been looking at Proverbs as thematically, if you haven't noticed. So, wisdom and money, wisdom and anger, those kind of things, because Proverbs is written in a way where it's kind of disjointed once you get past the first chapter. So it kind of splits into a million different directions. And so we'll read in a minute, and you can see in your bulletin the verses there from so many different chapters. There's actually even more than that we could draw from, but that tell us about specifically wisdom and our work. And the Bible is very unique about that. The Bible's different than other religions or ideas or philosophies of how we do certain commerce. It actually is trying to teach us that work did not start with sin. It's reminding us our work has a curse to it. And actually work began before that. In fact, in creation, you see work without sin. Both by, obviously, God and then by His creation. And that actually should make us think for a minute, okay, if that's the case, why do we treat it the way that we do? Because Scripture is different. Christianity, the biblical view, world and life view of work is not like other religions that started out of chaos or some sort of war or issue. It began by God just speaking. and then giving. And it was peaceful. And he said it was good long before sin came in. And so we're going to look this morning at how do we look and understand from Solomon, from the author of Proverbs, to regain some great wisdom in our work as we approach it. And there's a lot of resources on this. And if you need more of those, there are plenty of books, articles. There's even institutions surrounding faith and work. We just had someone up here that's talking about that and how work, our missional partners talking about that, as well as so many others. But let's talk about it at some point. This is for the Lord to teach us. You can follow along in your bulletin. We're going to look at a selection of Proverbs. You can take that, or you can see it on the screen, or both. Starting in Proverbs chapter 8. Does not wisdom call? Does not understanding raise her voice? On the heights beside the way, at the crossroads she takes her stand. Beside the gates in the front of the town, at the entrance of the portals, she cries aloud. To you, O men, I call, and my cry is to the children of man. A slack hand causes poverty, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps in harvest is a son who brings shame. Whoever is righteous has regard for the life of his beast, but the mercy of the wicked is cruel. Whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits lacks sense. The way of the sluggard is like a hedge of thorns, but the path of the upright is a level highway. Do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. Whoever tends a fig tree will eat its fruit, and whoever guards his master will be honored. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. We're going to look at these passages in kind of three distinct circles. One is, what's the purpose of work? What is its whole purpose? We're going to look at that. How do we approach work? How do we approach work with our current climate, our sin, the brokenness of our world? And how is work redeemed? So purpose of work, how we approach it, and how it's redeemed. If you look at the very bottom, the very last verse, 27:18, it says this: whoever tends a fig tree will eat its fruit, and he who guards his master will be honored. This is an interesting proverb because it really is speaking to how the masters were to be treated and implying this is to encourage those who were slaves, that their work held great honor. And what it was doing was saying that work is good. Work is honorable. The fig tree was something that was highly valued and was tended to faithfully. And that there's value in work itself, not just because you do it well, but because of what it is. And so typically what we do in our Western world, we can look at the product, we can look at whatever widgets are being made or whatever is being created or whatever we're doing at home or in an office or cubicle or our friendships or wherever it is, and we think, well, whatever product it is what is good. But actually, the Bible begins before that. It says, it is good intrinsic work. Because like I said, difference in this viewpoint and others, such as the Greeks, who believed that work was dealing with material world, which is cruel and wrong and evil. God is saying, no. Before sin entered the picture, this is good. Remember, we don't go back to Genesis 3 where sin entered the picture and say work is bad. That's what we typically can do. We go, God, I can't wait for the weekend because this is awful. Well, yeah, there are thorns and thistles, as Genesis 3 says about our work. But actually, work begins in Genesis 1. Because it says, what kind of worker is God? Before man is even created, it shows God as an engineer. It shows that he's created this world that fits together so beautifully and functions in a way that you just kind of can't unpack. That's what Proverbs is about. He says, I observe the ant. I observe this. I observe that. It's not saying faith and science are divided. It's saying exactly what is. It's observing creation. Deeply scientific and deeply faithful. God is an artist. We still marvel at sunsets. We still can't believe the colors that we didn't make in some sort of swatch creative way, but that we've observed: the greens, the reds, the purples, the blues, the way that God has made such beauty. Why do we flock to the mountains or the beaches? Because it's something bigger than us. It's something more beautiful. God is a custodian. He tends, he cares for what needs. Things that turn over, leaves that fall, seasons that come, change that happens. That God does these things. Guess what? Whether we are next to the tree or not, his creation, he tends for, he cares for it. This is work, and it is good. And it is made that way. It is intrinsically valuable, and it means that your work is good. And it doesn't matter where your work is. No, just to encourage you, the work here from Proverbs 8, 1 through 4, I'm about to read, is not just in one slice of work, but in all types. It says in chapter 8, does not wisdom call? Does not understanding raise her voice? On the heights beside the way, at the crossroads, she takes her stand. Besides the gate in front of the town, and at the entrance of the portal, she cries aloud. To you, O men, I call, and my cry is to the children of man. It means there's all kinds of work and all kinds of areas. Many of us may think, well, if we're in front of people, spreadsheets. Some of you may do spreadsheets all day long. And you may love that. Thank you, by the way. Guess what? That's bringing order to chaos. That's an extension of work and creativity, of the Lord's work. You may work at home. You may not work per se in an office. You may work by taking care of your family. That is work. You may work in a cubicle. You may work on the road. You may work in construction. You may work in a million different areas. We are all working. Anything we do when we leave these doors and go out Monday through Saturday is our work. And it's defining that way. And here's how we know that. First is the gates. This is where the elders of the city would sit and justice was discerned. So legal wisdom, it goes out into the city. This is some of those prestigious things of things going in and out of the gates of that city. How is it determined? How is it decided? How are we a part of that as citizens? How do we care for this city in the way that we work and speak into it? The justice and injustice, the ways that need to happen. Second, notice it says the crossroads. Verse 2, at the heights beside the way, at the crossroads she takes her stand. Crossroads go into the marketplace. They are roads that go out of the city into all other areas. That what we do here affects everywhere around us. What you do in your microcosm that you think is your household, or your job there, or your job in an office, doesn't stay there. It works its way out, and it's so valuable. And third, even notice the heights. This is interesting. It says, on the heights beside the way. The word heights was connected to what a city was known for. For instance, Athens would be known for the Parthenon, right? These kind of heralded cities. What is another way of looking at it? The skyline of a city. You can recognize certain cities by their skyline. The point is, how is a city recognized? What is Houston known for? We could say certain jobs, but how is it known? As a church, what does it mean to be followers of Jesus, to bring the intrinsic value of work into a city, more than just saying, well, we got a lot of oil and gas here. There's a lot of financial jobs here. There's a lot of things coming in and out of Houston, right? What are we doing as a part of that? Dorothy Sayers, who was an incredible thinker, author, theologian, early 20th century, wrote a small pamphlet in her days called Why Work? And she talked about the intrinsic value of our work. And that we typically do this secular sacred divide. And she minds out that the scriptures don't do that, and they do not. And she says this in this great illustration. She says, why is it in church that often a pastor will stand up and say how perhaps a carpenter will hear, hey, you need to not be drunk and disorderly on the weekends, but they won't learn how to make quality tables. That's what the scripture is talking about. What is it like for you to see your work in this way? That God loves what you're good at. You ever think about that? God loves what you're good at and where you're at with it, even when you're not. He sees you in that way. You're not a product to him. He's not only happy with your product, he's joyful with you because of who you are as his worker in this world. See, how do we treat our work? This is how we typically approach it. If you look at chapter 12, 10 and 11, it begins this way. Whoever is righteous has regard for the life of his beast, but the mercy of the wicked is cruel. Whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits lacks sense. The first thing it's trying to say is from a lesser to a greater. If you can't treat your beasts with mercy, how do you treat you, your work, or anyone around you? See, how we approach our work is without mercy. We approach it to see a way that it would give back to us. Do your job, or those around us, or actually ourselves, how hard we are on us, because we live in a context of you produce. That's why this is so difficult. Please hear me. And because this goes for me too. When God talks to us about the way he views our work, he's trying to turn us inside out. Because the way that we as Westerners do it is to say we are only as good as our product. If we approach that way, we will never understand mercy in that context. And yes, it is countercultural. We will not approach our jobs with that. We will either worship or hate our job. Or we will worship ourselves or hate ourselves or those around us that can do the work for us. There's an article, actually it was in a magazine, that is not a Christian publication. I think it's very interesting. It's from Slate magazine. And it wrote this article called Doing What You Love. And that it's a farce. And I really thought this was fascinating and well put. Especially for a magazine that's not putting its hand out as a Christian magazine. Listen to this. When we approach this doing what you love, work becomes divided in two opposing classes. That which is lovable, or creative, intellectual, social, prestigious, and that which is not repetitive, unintellectual, undistinguished. Those are terrible. Those in the lovable work camp are vastly more privileged in terms of wealth and social status. And this isn't a political or spiritual thing. This is just the way we value work. We often hear that phrase. I think it's really interesting. Do what you love. Hey, do what you love. If you're doing what you love, you're great. But you know what the Bible's saying? It's saying love what you do. There are so many of us in this place right now that are in a position of work, employment, that are doing things that we don't want to be doing. Dumping out the fryers is only the first of many jobs that I did. I was like, dude, welcome to it. There's plenty of it in all of our jobs or in a full job. And why is it that we look at our children and we look at those around us and we tell them, hey, you better get to work or you better do better now in school or you'll have XYG job? You realize that the scriptures do not tell us that. That we're saying, do what you love. We're saying that. Yes, some of us will have specific jobs and more prestigious jobs than others, but it is not about doing what you love. Love what you do. Yes, put your heart in it. But where is your first love? That will determine how you approach your job and what career path you take. Many of us are working our tails off and not loving what we do. This passage here in chapter 10, 4 and 5, it says, a slack hand causes poverty, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. Here's something interesting. The word slack in Hebrew is the word for a strung bow. So somebody stringing a bow, but it's not the string is not on the bow. It's the Hebrew word for the slack string on a bow. In other words, the string is so slack that it will not fire properly. So that the laziness that it's approaching, that we approach with, is not something we just sit back and wait, but it's that we're not firing accurately. We may be in our busyness or doing other things or approaching our jobs inaccurately. Approaching the way we work in every area of life inaccurately. And that's what it's getting at. He who gathers in summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps in harvest is a son who brings shame. Are we putting off our work and being lazy? Are we putting it off? Are we putting ourselves in our work, our identity of that? 12:11 says that. Whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits lacks sense. Think about those things. What kind of worthless pursuits are we pursuing because we're putting ourselves into our work? Bread is as it says, our daily rations. I think notice how wise these proverbs are. Whoever works his hand will have plenty of what? Bread. Daily bread. Think about the prayers that we have. It's that rationing. It's speaking to the rightness of that, not distractions. And one of the biggest distractions, I would say, that we have, and I think that this speaks to, is our multitasking. And many of us are like, that's good. We actually hold up multitasking as a sign of a success. But there's been actually a ton of research done by actual theologians, thinkers, Christians, who have talked about what multitasking has done to us. And this didn't just start with the iPhone. It's been around for a long time. One who's a woman named Maggie Jackson. And she wrote a lot on this, specifically in books. She says it goes back to the Industrial Revolution, that we want to split our time, make ourselves so much better by almost, as she says, disembodying ourselves. Andy Crouch, another thinker, theologian, author, has written this to say, this is how we use the terms of magic. He draws that word out, that we want things to be accomplished without us actually being attached to them. And so what we're seeing is actually in offices, what this disembodying does, what this multitasking does, as they've done research, is that it erodes attention. It keeps you from looking face to face and giving that person all of you, giving that task all of you. And it disembodies you. You know where you see this in other places in the New Testament? Is actually with the Pharisees. You see this in the way that they approach their work towards God, and by making more and more laws to keep the law, to have a relationship with God, they end up having a relationship with the law. They end up doing that and never having really relationship with God and anyone else. It erodes them. And not only that, it removes them from community. Other people are like never close to them. Isn't that what happens when we aren't really attached? We're not only giving attention to that person, we're removed from the community that is supposed to help us flourish. That's why God gives us that. Work isn't in your own little silo, no matter what that is. It's to incorporate you in relationship with everyone around you, in your neighborhood, in your office, in your church. It's everywhere. So how can we redeem? How is work redeemed? How is it redeemed then? What would it look like for Christ the King to have a countercultural wisdom, work, life view? What would it look like? It has to start here. Chapter 15, verse 19 says this. The way of the sluggard is like a hedge of thorns, but the path of the upright is a level highway. Did you catch that word? The way of the sluggard is like a hedge of thorns. See, the author of Proverbs is genius. They're drawing back to Genesis 3. They're drawing back to where thorns all began, because what is happening with the thorns? We think we can reverse the curse. And we go to our work, which is the easiest place to try and gain approval. I will tell you, raise my hand first, one of the easiest places to hide from relationship with God is in ministerial positions or serving in a church, because we think we have approval by our doing rather than by our relationship. What is God? There's only been one who's reversed the curse. Look, God didn't just say, make your city better. Guess what Jesus did? He wept over the city. He came and he worked in the city. He made quality tables as a carpenter. God didn't just remember this, when Jesus said, come follow me, we are always wrapped up in the whoa, come follow me. Guess what? They left their nets. Guess where they went back to? Their nets. Why do you see them after the beginning of the Gospels all go back to fishing and all go back into their places of work and home and life? Because the redemption, the value, the approval is to turn them from that back into it, not the other way around, like we want to do. We go to work to say, please approve me, because it is the easiest place to do it. We can put more into it, and it'll keep giving back. But what if we were to go to our work not for redemption, to finally say, I'm redeemed, but as redeemed? To know someone has reversed the curse. To know it was tax collectors who were unethical, began to give their money back and change their ethics. Roman soldiers began to treat their inferiors differently. These are people who were not Jewish people. They were people that observed what was going on, and they said, man, I think the way that they do it is the right way. The way Jesus, that man, speaks and lives out the gospel, it is totally different. And you see this in the book of Acts, so much so that it spins the whole economy of cities upside down. It changes the way people see one another, because they have a different view. Because there's only been one who's reversed the curse. There's only been one who's come and lived and died and risen again to defeat that. And that gives us joy. That gives us a movement into our craft that's different. That gives us what 22:29 says this. Do you see a man skillful in his work? Asking you a question. He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. It says this here because it's saying to us, we need to be masters of our craft. Think about that. Do you see a man skillful in his work? Do you observe those who are skillful ahead of you or around you? Are you taking it in? It's a word of emulation. Are you working in your craft to be better at it, wherever you are? And there are many in this room that may be asking a question as they look at this and say, where am I in this? I want you to know this is speaking to those who are retired, those who are unemployed, and those who are in pain because they are wanting meaningful, gainful work. And the reason our hearts long for that is because we're made for that. And guess what community is to show you mercy in a way that outside of here will not? This community. There's a reason our deacons and assistants have created a job board, and actually, I'm telling you what we have, a job board for those of you that may be unemployed in this room. And those you know that are part of our Christ the King community to help you navigate. It's not like a thing you sign up and they give you a job, but to help you know that you're cared for, have mercy, prayer, and that they're trying to connect you with other people that may help you. This is a mercy community that will show you what is a job and work supposed to look like that's different than out there. To help you go into that world and bring that joy and difference. Because the sweat and thorns is real, and we all know it. How we bring joy into that isn't by mustering it up in our own hearts. It's by coming through the one who has mastered his craft. It says, do you see? Who's the only one who's done this? It is Christ. And that's how you not only go into knowing approval, joy, but even rest. Let's just throw Sabbath out there because that is so important. How do you rest from your work? If we get in the pattern as we are of saying, okay, it's Sunday, I got to gear up for Monday. No. You know, this is the reason the church meets on Sunday and changes in the book of Acts. It used to be at the end of the week. On the Sabbath was Saturday, which we still kind of treat our week that way. Do you know actually why they met on Sunday is because Jesus resurrected on that day. So the early church said, we're going to meet on Sundays, the Lord's Day, so that every Sunday is a resurrection. That means every time you leave these doors, you're not going out at the end of your week, you're actually going into the first of your week saying, how do I live my work and life through the resurrection? He's defeated it. He's beaten it. He's risen from it. So that should give you rest. And especially when you're reminded and you're on those vacations and you're like, man, I want to eat at Chick-fil-A. Oh, it's closed. It's Sunday. I know all of you have done that. You probably did it this summer again. You forget every summer. You're traveling. And now they put closed Sunday on the sign as if that's supposed to help and we still don't remember. But it's not that we're trying to be like Chick-fil-A. They've picked it up. We are meant to be recalibrated, to rest in order to replenish and go. And have a community that does so, that drives us to that. This table behind me is the perfect picture of that very thing. When we approach this table, it's a table that I first want to acknowledge that we may not think about this, but there are kind hands that help put this table together that we never see. They come in and out between services. They clean up for us afterwards. And yet they're a part of coming to the ultimate table of what this is. This is not my table. This isn't even their table, even though they help set it up. It's actually Jesus' table because they recognize, and we should too, there's only been one whose hands have given this. We are coming to a table that talks about body and blood. Every time we talk about our jobs, we talk about blood, sweat, and tears given to our bank account, to our children, to our boss, to what's next. This is where you come and rest and taste and see that the curse has been broken and reversed through Jesus. And that you can leave after from this table knowing that by faith you fed on him and you will rejoice. You can rejoice in your work that it is not your body and blood that needs to be spilled, nor could it be to change anything about what's going on. And if you're here this morning and you trust in that one who's given his body and blood for you, I want to encourage you to come to this table and be reminded again, taste and see that he is good and that his burden is light. And from him you can have rest. And if you have not done that, I'd strongly encourage you to ask me, ask someone else here, what is this about? Because it's a lot bigger than just one person's talking on a Sunday. The good news echoes out for eternity. Come to the one who teaches this good news for your work, your life, and for all of eternity.